Welcome to your Raider Show from OURTV, right here in Oakland, California. I'm John Phillips, your host. This is Leonard Stevens, the most knowledgeable Raider fan I've ever met in my life, and you're going to find that out in the coming weeks. Well, Leonard, we're ready to roll. Let's get going.
A new season, John. It's good to be back.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
All the optimism is present. It's September. We're 0-0. We're in first place. So there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic now.
Well, I tell you what, the only thing that I'm concerned about, and we've been talking for the last hour getting prepared for the show, is consistency. And if we give consistency throughout the season in all parts of the football team, I think we're going to be not only in the playoffs, but we'll be the Western Conference champions.
I'm hoping on it. I'm hoping that we see an improved Derek Carr. I'm hoping that we see an improved defense that's able to stop the run. And obviously, with the additions that we've had that we're going to discuss during this half-hour show, we're going to talk about that huge offensive line. And if we can open up holes, and you know the recipe to get into the playoffs, you got to be able to stop the run, and you got to be able to run the football when it gets cold outside.
Well, since you opened that door, let's start with the offensive line, and let's start with the offense, and we'll do the defense and the rest later. But let's start with the offense, and that when you start with the offense, you can only start with number 4, and that's Derek Carr.
Absolutely. Derek Carr is the one that's going to have to take us to the next level. I've watched this guy over the last 3 years. He was 0-10 his first year before we got that win against Kansas City on Monday night. The following year, last year, he was 7-9. So if we can continue to see the gradual improvement, more importantly, the ability to finish off drives and score touchdowns as opposed to bringing out Sebastian, then I think we got an excellent chance this year.
Well, the one good thing about that, from what I've seen in the first 4 preseason games, Sebastian Janikowski is probably in the best shape of his entire life. I mean, when he's a baby, he's slimmer than he was then. But that's a good thing. But let's use him only when necessary. I mean, with the talent that we have across the line, wide receivers, running backs, and especially our quarterback, we should be one of the top scoring teams in the league, without a doubt.
Indeed. This is one of the best, most talented teams that the Raiders have had in years. If you go from left to right, you're starting on the offensive line with Donald Penn, 6'5", 340 pounds, 10-year veteran, protecting the blind side. Then you get probably, arguably, the best guard in the NFL we picked up during the offseason from Baltimore in Kelechi Osamale, 6'4", 340 pounds. You've got a huge, intelligent offensive center in Rodney Hudson, who's actually been to the Pro Bowl a couple of times. And then Gabe Jackson moved over from the left side to the right side, and you got, for once, a healthy Menelik Watson. So actually right now, based on Pro Football ratings, the Raiders have the second best offensive line in football behind the Dallas Cowboys. And if you really looked at the preseason, Carr wasn't even touched throughout the first 3 games. He actually did get sacked once in the 3rd game. But the Raiders' offensive line has held up throughout the preseason, and I believe they're the biggest key to the Raiders winning this year.
You realize you said our quarterback only got sacked once in 3 games. I hope we can come back in 4 weeks and say that he's only got sacked once in the first 4 games of the season.
That would be great. 1 a quarter, that's only 4 sacks a year.
That's what I'm saying.
So that would be fantastic. So, and you think about the weapons that we have on offensive now. I mean, you look at Michael Crabtree, who had a rebirth as a Raider. I mean, he had, 85 catches last year, tied his season high. And then you had the rookie, Amari Cooper, who came in with 72 catches for, 1,000 yards. Yep. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. So they combined for 150 catches between the 2 wideouts. But I think what's going to surprise a lot of people is the emergence of Seth Roberts. I mean, over the last 3 years, he's primarily the reason why Rod Streeter is no longer in the silver and black. He started off as an undrafted player. He made clutch catches down the stretch last year, and he's actually physically taller than Cooper and Crabtree. He's 6'2", and he's a slither, so he can definitely scoot up and down the field.
Okay, so that only left one position left, our running backs.
And that is also critical and key because, although Latavius Murray had over 1,000 yards rushing, he finished with 1,066 yards, 4 yards behind the AFC division leader in carries, which was Chris Ivory. He squeezed it out with 1,070 yards, beat him by 4 yards. But 1,000 yards used to be a unit of measure back when they played 12 games. You know, now 1,000 yards over 16 games to me doesn't mean anything. We need Latavius Murray to have at least 13 yards rushing, and more importantly, we need a complimentary back that can complement him and be able to give us 400 to 500 yards out of the backfield with the ability to catch the ball. And our number 5 draft pick, DeAndre Washington, out of Texas Tech. Actually, he was a Raider, so he's been a Raider over the last 8 years. So DeAndre Washington out of Texas Tech, he definitely displayed that in the preseason, that he can catch the ball coming out of the backfield, and with his size, being 5'8", 205, is a big change from Murray, who's 6'3", 230 pounds, so you can't even see him until he gets in the hole and out of the hole. So I'm excited about the complement back that we have now for Latavius.
Well, we're going to clarify. You said Murray 13 yards. We mean 1,300 yards.
We need 1,300 yards.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yards. You know, it's still out of the preseason. I'm not in rare season form yet, but I'll get there soon.
You are. You are.
I'll
Trust
get
me.
there soon.
You see, because it's up here that matters. Because I tell you, when you talk about an encyclopedia, an almanac, all those different things that people get knowledge from, you don't have to go to book. Yours right upstairs. And I'm telling you, I've been doing this a lot of years, and I've never seen anybody that can rip that off. As soon as I came in the door tonight, you just start dropping stats on me, like, oh my goodness, we're ready. We're almost in playoff season already, and we're not even started the season yet. But now, one of the things we didn't talk about, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I think one of the most important parts of our season this year is going to be because of our head coach, Jack Del Rio. And a lot of people don't put a lot of stock in head coaches, but we've been doing this for the last couple of years, and we know the times that I've been out to the practice facility and watching him interact with these players. You can tell that he's a guy that's been in the wars as a player. He's a guy that coaches respect, coaching for him, but more importantly, the camaraderie that he has with his players. I watch that very closely. And welcome back to your Raider Show on OURTV.
That's it.
And we're going into segment 2, and we're talking about, and not putting them second, although you got to score. You can't win if you don't score. But if your opponent can't score, then we can win. So now we go to defense.
Yes, and the Raiders have made some big changes on defense this offseason. Number one, we're trying to get to the quarterback. You know what Al Davis used to say, the quarterback must go down, and he must go down hard. Right? So that's the key in order to our defense actually working. And we also know that the defensive secondary is the best friend to the pass rush, and the pass rush is the best friend to the defensive secondary. So what do we do over the offseason? We address the defensive front, and we address the secondary. So let's start with the defensive front, since they're the first line of defense. So we went out and we picked up a key free agent who actually was a very welcome piece to an old familiar teammate, Malcolm Smith, and also Reggie McKenzie, as well as Ken Norton. So we went and picked up Bruce Irvin. So how do you think about that?
First of all, I was waiting for you to say Ken Norton, because I think he is one of those unsung heroes. But that's why I respect Jack Del Rio so much, because he allows his coaches to do their thing. He doesn't overcoach. In basketball, you use it more, but he lets those guys run their areas of defense, whether it's the line, the linebackers, the defensive backs, whatever it is. He lets them do their thing, and then he just kind of, oversees the whole project. And I think he's doing that extremely well. But I think with what Ken Norton is doing with them linebackers, and getting Irving. Man, I'm going to tell you, when I first saw that, I'm like, come on, somebody's kidding me.
Well, see, the thing is, Seattle used Irvin differently than Ken Norton plans to use Irvin for the Raiders this year. Seattle, which he was able to do, and he did effectively, he was able to drop back in coverage. So he was guarding tight ends, he was covering running backs, it was coming out the backfield. But his strength, and he'll tell you this, where he wants to do, is that he doesn't want to move backwards. He wants to go forward, right? And so last year, Bruce Irvins had 8 sacks. Khalil Mack had 15 sacks. So can you imagine if we can get 12 sacks out of him and get 15 or more out of Khalil Mack, although Derek Carr is willing to lay money that Khalil Mack is going to get 30 sacks this year. So that remains to be seen. But I think with Bruce Irvin coming off the right side and Khalil Mack coming off the left side and even flip-flopping them, you got bookends that are meeting at the quarterback, and we need that pocket push right up the gut so we can get that from a rookie, another undrafted rookie that played very well in the preseason, Denarius Latham. He looked very well. And our second-round draft pick looks excellent, Jahil Ward. He played fantastic in the preseason, a lot of stops in the backfield, but the Raiders have versatile linemen, and I think that's going to help out a lot because with the injury to Mario Edwards, the plan is to move Ward to the outside and have him come on the outside with Khalil Mack, and then you send Irvin coming off the edge as well as an outside linebacker. So I think the Raiders' best defense is when they're rushing 5. Number one, 2 people you have to count for Khalil Mack. So that's 2 offensive linemen that are already accounted for. They're going to have to go with the other 4. They're going to have to man up with the other 4. So that's 6 players right there. The quarterback 7. So the team can only send out 4 people.
Yeah.
And the Raiders are only sending 5.
Wait a minute.
So they got 6 people for defense.
Yeah, but 2 to Mack?
Oh, yeah. Max could guard double teams all the time.
But what about Irvin?
Sometimes Irvin might get. Irvin is like, I hope they double and triple team him because that's going to allow me easy access.
So his number's going to go up too.
Absolutely. And so that's what the plan is. So, and also keep in mind that actually, I think after the first 7 games, we get a gentleman back by the name of Alden Smith. So
I'm a big Alden Smith fan. I know a lot of people, they doubt, but even when he was with the 49ers, he's a young man that, and we'll spend a show on this. Maybe we were just talking about when we have our bye week.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of things about Alden Smith a lot of people don't know.
Sure.
And the most important thing is where he was raised.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Because
well, that'll be another segment.
Yeah, that spends a lot of time, spends a lot of rhetoric as to why some of the things that he's dealt with in his life.
He's a young man. He's only 26 years old.
That's what I'm saying. But
so
he's a beast in himself.
Absolutely.
But you know what I want to talk about real quick? The last preseason game to me was really special because of the fact I saw some young linemen, defensive linemen on the Raiders team that were just the score was 2-0.
Right.
Man, they were balling.
Right.
They were sacks, and I mean, we're talking about the veterans and the guys that we know can play. These young kids can go.
Yeah, and one of the young kids, we talked about Ward, but that Calhoun from Michigan State,
I'm telling you,
he's a beast. Wearing number 91 for the Silver and Black this year. So we've got 2 young, hungry defensive linemen to go along with Khalil Mack, who, by the way, is the only player in NFL history, to be all-pro at defensive end and at linebacker in the same year. This man went all-pro at 2 positions. No one's ever done that. So the Raiders have a phenomenal player in Khalil Mack, who's the centerpiece of the defense. Now, the secondary, we also made some big changes in the secondary. We go out, and how can you replace Charles Woodson?
You can't.
You just cannot replace Charles Woodson. So what do the Raiders do? They go out and get the NFL league-leading interceptor from last year, Reggie Nelson from Cincinnati, who had 8 picks last year. So we've got a ball hawk, and we have a healthy Nate Allen this year. And let's also not forget our first-round draft pick is a big hitter in the Jack Tatum, Ronnie Lott mode, and this gentleman just knocking people off their socks. So we have Carl Joseph as our number 1 draft pick. So the Raiders secondary has really went through some changes. Last year we got fortunate to be able to get David Amerson off the waiver wire.
Played very well.
He was a first-round pick from the Redskins. The Redskins cut him in his 2nd year. Sometimes a player just needs a new surroundings.
You're right. It happens all the time.
He came in, and not only did he lead the league in deflections, he was the most improved player voted by Pro Football Weekly. So we have a great corner there, and then we didn't stop there. Reggie was busy this offseason. We picked up Sean Smith, who was the least targeted cornerback in the league last year. They threw away from him. And they paid the price because, I mean, I don't want to boast anything the Kansas City Chiefs do, but they actually ended up getting a very good rookie out of Oakland, California that was able to lead the league and tie for the league with Reggie Nelson in interceptions, who was the NFL Rookie of the Year, and Marcus Peters. They went to McClymonds High School.
Right.
So I'm proud of the fact that he's from the Oak, but, you know, basically he's a Chief. I saw him during a camp during the offseason, and I told him he was in trouble, and he said, no, we're not. We're coming back. So we'll see. I doubt it. The Chiefs look like they're going to be in trouble this year when they have to go up against.
And this Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Oakland Raiders are going to face those New Orleans Saints down in the Bayou. So tell me what you think about that matchup coming up.
Well, I think the key to stopping New Orleans is, again, applying pressure and getting to Drew Brees. Drew Brees is an 11-year veteran. As a matter of fact, he just signed an extension, so he has a lot of incentives on playing well in the season opener. Try like $44 million in incentives. So, and that's guaranteed. So Drew Brees has thrown the only quarterback other than Peyton Manning and Tom Brady to throw over 5,000 yards at least twice. So, and he's been to the Pro Bowl 9 years. So he is a seasoned veteran. He has a lot of reason to do well this year. They have young wide receivers. Their offensive line, I believe, is suspect. They just actually re-signed Jahlil Evans, who used to be on their roster last year. He was recently cut. And for a team to make a decision like that tells me that there's some instability there in their offensive line. So I kind of feel like that their offensive line is vulnerable to actually being able to protect the quarterback, and I hope open up holes because they have a couple of decent running backs that they have on their team. They have Mark Ingram, and they have C.J. Spiller. Those are two running backs that the Raiders are going to have to be able to put the clamps on and going to have to be able to shut down the running lanes. So I hope that we're able to get to the quarterback. That's the key to beating them, is shutting down the run. Now, on the other side of the ball, their defense was porous last year. They were ranked 31st in the league in passing defense and in rushing defense and overall. So a Derek Carr with all the weapons that we have and the ability to run the ball and to be able to get the ball down the field, which I do believe you're going to see us go deep more. We ran a lot of go routes in preseason. The timing is definitely there. Derek has the arm. I think those would be the keys, being able to attack that defense, attack their defense with our offense, our offensive weapons, and being able to shut down the running lanes and getting pressure to Drew Brees. You say, well, that is normally how you win football games. Well, yeah, it comes down to being consistent and executing.
Well, when you talk about, we talked about the offense, we talked about the defense, we're talking about stopping New Orleans. Now, what I see and always have been, when Drew Brees gets pressured, he's not the same quarterback. And you talked about the reason. The reason is because he's had for several years an outstanding offensive line. And when they cut a guy that was a starter this close to the opening game of the season, there's some issues and there's some questions. So what my concern is can we take advantage of those weak points and attack the areas that this new person's coming into? And that's where our coaches on the defense, believe me, they know more than we know, and they already know that. So that means that that's going to be one of the key points of that game, is their offensive line against our defensive line.
And we're going to have to send 5 because you can't try to get pressure with just 4. We've got too many quick linebackers that are able to get there. Even Malcolm Smith can get there. Heber can come up the gut and be able to push the pocket right into Drew Brees and force him into making that pass a little bit earlier. And with the tight man-to-man coverage that we like to play, that should lead to interceptions. So you're absolutely right. The other thing to think about is that there's even more signs of there being instability on their Saints offense, is that they play their starters in the 4th preseason game. everybody rests their starters. They don't want to risk injury. They don't want to see that, their player, one of their key players, go out in a meaningless game. As a matter of fact, that's another show. We need to reduce the preseason games. It's ridiculous. The NFL is making a lot of money off that, and we're just sitting there paying for a fourth game. I'd rather see 3 preseason games or 2 preseason games in an extended regular season, or playoff format. But that's a whole nother subject. But back to what the Raiders need to do, and the keys to victory is definitely they got to be able to do well, not only on the offensive side, the defensive side, but the special teams as well.
Special teams are just what they are, very special.
So real quick, it looks like we're about to wrap it up. What are your 3 main keys to victory?
Consistency, consistency, consistency. Offense, defense, special teams.
Well, you know what? I couldn't have said that better myself. I agree with you 100%. So all I can say is just win, baby. And thank you very much for sitting down and watching our inaugural Raider Show, your Raider Show on OURTV. We'll be back next week, and we'll be previewing the Atlanta Falcons versus the Oakland Raiders, the season opener. I'm excited about that. I will be in section 109, row 35, seat 11 through 6 with me and my family. Alrighty. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week on your Raider Show on OURTV.